My name is Troy Carpenter, and I work with Mesalands Community College. I'm an instructor there on their new wind turbine program. My first year students that I'll be teaching, there's almost 45 students, and there are around 20 in the second year that are returning from last year. You can get a certificate after 1 year, but after 2 years you actually can get an associate's in wind energy technology, which is a huge leg up for anyone wanting to get into the industry, because right now they're so desperate for people. They're hiring people that aren't really qualified, and they're not happy about that, and they'd love to hire people who are qualified as technicians. And there's all kinds of wind projects in New Mexico and in Texas, especially Oklahoma, some possibly in Colorado, and so they have plenty of local opportunities. If not, they could move anywhere they want. And actually, in the whole world, there's job opportunities everywhere for a wind technician.
Great. And so the turbine obviously is a functioning turbine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just for show and for class.
No, it's making power. Yeah.
And where is that power tied into?
It connects directly to the electric grid in the town. It's not hooked to the school or anything like that. It just all goes into the grid like anything else. And there is no special substation for it. It's actually there. The down tower transformer hooks right to the grid. So.
Great. And what's the grid owned by? What's the utility here?
It's Excel Energy, correct? Yeah, Excel Energy.
Is Excel purchasing the RECs from the turbines?
They're
paying like an incentive?
I don't know about credits, but they are buying the electricity and paying for it directly. I don't know about the credit situation. But I'm recently moved here from New York State, and for 2 years in New York I worked for GE on wind turbines. These Southwest states amaze me. As I said, I'm from the Northeast. There's so much wind and sun here, and all year round apparently, from what I hear. And there's so much land that's not being used. It's almost perfect. It's almost ideal for renewable development using wind and solar. And now I also find out that there's possibilities for geothermal electricity production also. People tend to be very leery of anything new, even if it could be a perfect thing and they're still going to complain about it. And we've all heard the crazy stories about what wind turbines can do, causing mad cow disease, all these. They're absolutely ridiculous, but people believe them because they're so desperate to not do something new that they're willing to believe something like that. And there's also governmental issues. Not all communities want wind sites, and they have laws sometimes that prevent tall structures from being built. And that goes for residential especially. There's a lot of people want to put up residential wind turbines, but they can't because their community says you can't have a tall structure on your property, and they won't make an exception for that, which I think they should. But as far as hurdles, also there's a big one. The reality is it's a very expensive undertaking. To build a wind site costs hundreds of millions of dollars. And right now, the economy, it's fluctuating, and credit is drying up, as everyone talks about, and it's not flowing to these energy companies the way it was. And so they literally can't get loans. And they want to build a site, and they're willing to do it, but the bank says, we can't give you that much money, we need that money right now. I've witnessed site cancellations because of lack of credit. They had the money, it was all worked out, and then the bank said, no, never mind, we can't give you this money, it's too risky. The products exist. They're not perfect yet. Wind turbines are not perfect, but they're getting better and better, so it's not really a technology problem. And they can operate in all different climate ranges. I mean, this particular turbine at the college is a GE cold weather extreme turbine, which is ironic, but it'll run in northern Siberia, or theoretically, or it'll run in Texas. So. Even that, there's no technological reason why they can't be built. It's important we stop driving vehicles that use gasoline as their only power source. It's almost silly that we do it because it's a filthy fuel. It burns filthy. It damages the engine just by running it. It doesn't keep, so it goes bad. You have to keep buying it and replacing it. Obviously, we depend on foreign nations to obtain it. And then there's of course the big one that we all talk about is the carbon dioxide emissions that it creates. And it's a huge problem, and I think if we start analyzing our vehicles critically, we'll start to realize, hey, we can get around and do our chores and go to work and get our groceries with an electric vehicle without using any gasoline. And if I need to go on a trip, we might have a natural gas electric hybrid where you charge up the car to go short range, but when you go on long trips, it uses natural gas. And we have an existing natural gas infrastructure in this country. So all you need is a compressor kit in your garage, and you can have a natural gas powered car, and you didn't have to, rebuild the town or bring in new utilities. And we have all that now. So I think vehicles personally is an important, just because that's a huge source of consumption and a huge source of emissions. Right now, you could build an electric natural gas hybrid without any invention. Everything exists to do it right now. It's been around for years actually. They were building electric cars in the 70s when the gas crisis was going on, and it's still the same now. It's even better now because the batteries have improved so much. And in some states, they certainly pretend to care and then do nothing, or they'll pay lip service to renewable companies. I noticed a lot more interest here than I did in New York. And New York's considered a fairly progressive state, but in upstate, a lot of people don't even know about wind turbines' existence until they say, hey, we're going to bring these in here. But down here, everyone seems to know about it, so that's kind of nice. Well, we still do run all of our infrastructure on fossil fuels, and it's completely essential. And it made it very easy for someone to purchase a vehicle and have a standardized fuel that they could go to the same gas station as everyone else goes to, or a different one, doesn't matter, and they'd be able to find fuel. And so it's been beneficial in that way. You have a standardized system that everyone understands. It's readily available fuel, unless there's a crisis. And also financially, it's of course people got used to the system and managed to make money on it, and whole communities revolving around energy use. But in modern times, it's hurting us now because prices of gas fluctuate. It can really break people's budgets when the gas prices double, as they had in a few years this last year. It affects us negatively because now we know about the emissions realities, and it's causing harm to the environment. And that's kind of an indirect harm, but and I would say also there's this national security argument gets used now. It's kind of a new one, but it's truly valid. We're sending our resources overseas to countries that don't like us very much, and they have a lot of control over us, and they because of that, and it creates bad bedfellows. Renewable energy all tends to focus around electricity production. Electricity is a wonderful form of energy because you can make it in all different kinds of ways, and everything can be made to run on it. And when in the case of vehicles, an electric motor is a superior machine to an internal combustion engine. It has immediate torque. It's very inherently efficient. It uses most of the energy for rotational energy. They're very reliable. They last a long time. It's very simple. If one breaks, you can literally pick one up and put it back in your car because they don't weigh 1,000 pounds. And it's already a standard. We run pretty much everything on electricity, or like I said, or it can be made to run. I can't think of anything that really requires an internal combustion engine to operate. So if we switch everything to electric, I think we'll have an even more standardized infrastructure than we already have. And in terms of energy production, it's a good business to be in. All different varieties of power plants, all making the same product, even though they're all doing different things. They're making electricity. We have this bad habit over the last few decades, well, I'd say over 50 years, where we just think, oh, we'll just send power an incredibly long distance. The ridiculous thing about that is you're wasting 80% of it in terms of the long runs. So you're getting 20% of the energy you sent out. So you have to make up that 80% by just making more, and it's wasteful. The thing I love about renewable sources like wind is communities can essentially go off-grid. Even though they're still connected to the grid, they produce so much power with wind turbines or solar panels that they actually can be independent. They still require the grid for the stability of their electric supply, but they don't put a drain on the grid, and so they don't necessarily need a long-distance delivery to their location. And right now, everything's, well, not everything, but we have lots of long-distance delivery because we haven't had this idea for very long where local communities could generate their own power. But I've seen success stories firsthand. There's a ski resort in Massachusetts called Jiminy Peak. The town came together and decided to buy one wind turbine, and they installed it up at the ski resort, and it produces a lot of power. It offsets most of the ski resort's usage, and then they're so happy with it, they're going to build another one. And this is a community coming together. This wasn't a big company invading, saying, oh, we're going to put a wind site here and make some money. This was a community saying, we want one of these things. Let's put it in and see what happens. And they're very happy with it. I will show some bias towards wind. I thought for a long time solar was a hippie progressive technology because the cost was so high and the return was so slow. That's changing now. Solar is getting a lot cheaper. It's getting cheaper quickly as plants are coming online to build cells and things like that. And there's all these new ideas of how to make solar energy too. So I certainly don't think it's silly. I think it's worthwhile. And as far as wind, they've been using wind turbines for a long time and with some success. It is true that the yield is weak compared to, let's say, a nuclear plant. You might have a nuclear plant making 1.5 gigawatts, one plant. Well, you have one turbine making 1.5 megawatts. It's 1,000 times less. So it's true, the yield is less. So you compensate by building more of them, which sounds silly and inefficient, except that we're dealing with a renewable energy source, so efficiency doesn't really matter that much. We're not making enough wind power, we're building more wind generators, that kind of. And that's good too because it creates jobs. I don't think right now we have the technology to completely 100% run our grid system on renewables. It would take a massive overhaul and technology that doesn't quite exist yet, but it's not unrealistic. There's super battery technology they're talking about now where turbines might have their own batteries, so you could theoretically run a community completely on wind power, and when the wind's not blowing, the batteries take over, and so it's possible. I don't foresee our grid becoming fully renewable anytime in the next 50 years, but it's getting more and more in terms of percentage. I think we've all heard the statistic. By 2020, they say we could have 20% of our energy provided by wind. Well, that's an old statistic because that was based on older turbine technology. That was based on back before they even had megawatt class turbines in large numbers. Now they're all in the megawatt class. They're very popular, and they're building bigger and bigger turbines. So it's possible that estimate was conservative, and maybe we'll be making more than that. But we have to keep it up. We can't stop, because I can just imagine in the next few years maybe we'll say, we're going to stop building wind turbines, so we'll never get to that benchmark. People complain about wind turbines being put in their beautiful country homes because this is the country, I don't want to look at industrial technology. Well, I think I see it as a way for the rural areas to contribute to the grid electrically, because in the past it's always been up to the large urban centers with their smoke belching power plants, and people in the country never had to deal with it. They just got to enjoy the electricity and never had to see where it came from. And now we're actually getting an opportunity to generate electricity for the grid, and in a way it's like giving back. I think it's a somewhat noble cause. Before I moved, I lived within a wind site, and it's really neat to look out your window in the morning and see these wind turbines running, because they've been running all night making all that power, and they're very quiet. They're really not that they don't offend me at all. Actually, they kind of look like modern art because they're very simple. the way they're designed, it's just a pole and 3 blades and a little tiny nacelle. But on that subject, I think it's an opportunity for the people living in rural areas to generate electricity for the country and generate jobs. And it's good for those rural areas because of the jobs. Everyone needs jobs, and a lot of these places don't have well-paying jobs, good-paying jobs. Also, on that subject, I sometimes say to people, would you prefer it if I built a coal-powered plant in your backyard, because that's a little less pleasant than a wind turbine generator? Then they kind of get confused.